Hey everyone! Today we're diving into this really powerful concept that can honestly change the way you interact with people, especially when you're trying to help them. It doesn't matter if you're a professional, a parent, or just a friend. It's all about finding your authentic voice.
So, let's just start with a question I think we've all asked ourselves at some point. Why is trying to help someone sometimes just so hard? You have the best intentions, you can see what you think is the right path for them, but for some reason, your advice just doesn't connect.
I mean, what do we usually do? We jump right in with what seems like the logical solution, right? We share what worked for us, we give our 2 cents, but instead of helping, it feels like we've just made things worse, or, we completely missed the point. And honestly, it's a super frustrating feeling.
So what's the alternative here? Well, there's this incredible concept called use of self, and you can almost think of it as your own personal superpower in any relationship.
Now, you might be thinking this is going to be some kind of complicated new technique or, I don't know, a dense psychological theory, but it's actually something way, way closer to home. The single most important, most powerful tool that you have at your disposal,
That's it. It's you. Your own internal world, your reactions, your feelings, all that stuff is the critical instrument for actually creating connection and change. It's not so much about what you know, it's about how you use who you are.
So what is use of self? Well, it's basically the ability to tune into your own internal radio station. It's about noticing your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors, not as distractions you need to ignore, but as a super important source of data about what is really happening in that moment.
And in practice, this just means paying attention. It's noticing when you feel that little tinge of judgment or that really strong wish for things to go a certain way. It's about knowing when your hot buttons are getting pushed or when your own fears and biases might be coloring how you see things. The goal isn't to get rid of them, it's just to see them for what they are.
Okay, but how do we actually get better at this? Well, a researcher named Donald Schoen gave us this brilliant framework that breaks it all down into 2 ways of thinking: reflection in action and reflection on action.
The big difference here is when all this thinking happens. Reflection in action is the real game changer. It's thinking on your feet, observing your inner world while you're interacting. This is what lets you adjust your approach in real time. Then you have reflection on action. That happens later. It's you debriefing with a mentor or just journaling about it. That's where the deep learning for the next time happens, and you absolutely need both.
To really master this inner world, we're going to need a bit of a toolkit. So let's look at a couple of key concepts that can really help you get a handle on this.
All right, first up is something called the press. Have you ever felt that almost physical urge to just jump in and fix something right now? Yeah, that's the press. It's this internal pressure that is just screaming at you to do something, say something, solve something, immediately.
This quote from the research just captures the intensity of the press perfectly. A trainee is watching a father ignore his crying baby, and her internal monologue is, "I was dying. I had to fight myself not to pick her up." Wow, that powerful gut-level urge, that is the press in action.
So what's the antidote to the press? It's a skill called holding the tension. This is the ability to just sit with that discomfort, to tolerate the anxiety and the uncertainty without immediately trying to make it go away. When you don't push for a specific outcome, you create this space where real understanding can actually happen.
So let's see how this plays out in a real-world example from the research. Meet Jake. He's a practitioner, and he's visiting Meg, a new foster parent. Now, Jake is getting more and more frustrated because it really looks like Meg is completely missing her baby's signals.
And this right here is a perfect example of reflection in action. Instead of just blurting out his frustration, Jake tunes inward. He notices he's frustrated, sure, but he also notices he's afraid of saying the wrong thing. And he even connects with this idea that maybe he feels frozen too. He's using all this internal chatter as valuable data.
And the payoff for doing this is huge. Because Jake took that pause and used his self-awareness, he was able to sidestep his initial frustration. He ended up asking different, better questions that opened up a real conversation with Meg, and that led to a way more effective and connected visit.
Now, all this sounds amazing, but let's be real. It's not a switch you just flip overnight. The research actually frames this as a journey with some pretty clear phases, a path toward finding that effective, authentic voice.
This learning journey usually has 4 phases. First, there's confusion, where everything just feels awkward and you're super self-conscious.
Then comes awareness, and this is a frustrating stage where you realize what you should have done, but only after the moment's already passed. The third phase is the struggle, where you're actively trying to put this stuff into practice. And then finally, you get to a state of ease, where using your self-awareness becomes this natural, authentic part of how you connect with people.
And this really brings us to the most crucial takeaway of all. The goal isn't to become some perfect, neutral, robotic helper who has zero biases or feelings. I mean, that's impossible. The real goal is to become an aware helper, one who knows their own internal landscape, and a genuine one who can use that awareness to build real, authentic connections.
So I'll just leave you with this question. The next time you feel that press, that urge to jump in and fix something, what's just one small step you could take to pause, to listen to what's happening inside you, and to try and find your own authentic voice in that moment?